NightMerica is an independently produced podcast. If you like what we're doing, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/NightMerica. And please tell your friends about us.
Welcome to NightMerica, a podcast that takes you on a tour of the abnormal, paranormal, weirdly true, and truly weird in every corner across this nation. Because, to paraphrase Ray Parker Jr., whether it's ghosts, aliens, monsters, or monstrous humans, there's something strange in your neighborhoods. Episode 7, Bridges of Murdersome Counties. But first, a word from our colleagues.
I like that. I like that bridges of murdersome counties, like bridges of Madison County.
Bridges of Murdersome County. I don't know. I was going to go with I don't know. I just like a good pun. Anyhow, so yeah. Talk about bridges. Yeah, so we're talking about bridges today, and as always, I'm Aaron, joined by Britt. Hi, Britt.
Hey, crew. How's everyone's quarantine going?
You know they can't actually respond to you right now.
They can. They can respond to us on the social medias.
That's true. Is that a thing? Social medias? Is that a word? Social
medias, yes. I'm just trying to get familiar with our crew.
Right.
You know? We did that IG live, and that was fun. We got to see the comments and stuff like that. So I'm just connecting to our audience.
Right. By shortening words. That's how people do it. I find years of working in the media that two proven methods of seeming hip and cool is by shortening words and or strategically misspelling a word or adding a lot of X's to things, to the extreme XXXXX.
Yes, XXX. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about bridges, but what have you ever had a lot of people have fear, a fear of bridges, crossing over bridges. Or they hold their breath. I think someone in my family, I forget who it is, holds their breath when they cross a bridge. It can be really long if it's the bridge down to the Keys in Florida. But do you do that? Was that ever a thing of yours?
I don't. I'm fine with bridges, but my college boyfriend was so afraid of bridges, especially bridges over water. He could not drive comfortably with bridges over water, and he would get really nervous, and it would totally freak him out. So I'd be in the completely insensitive person that I am, I'd be oh my God, just pull over. I will just take care of the shit. But yeah, he was super anxious over it. What about you?
So your argument actually made it a bridge over troubled waters. Were you dating Art Garfunkel or Paul Simon?
God, no, I wish. I was dating a real bro.
I'm not scared of them, but I don't like them. I'm not scared of them, but when I am driving over them, especially in New York, some of the bridges, I am very aware of the height and the fact that if you do veer off a little bit, it freaks you out. Although I do, between bridges and then driving on mountainous roads in the snow, I will take bridges because I've been on some very narrow roads, in the snow, and it's freaky.
Yeah, driving down windy roads on a mountainside. I guess I'm a little bit afraid of heights, but not super afraid of heights. But that really makes my skin crawl. I'll do that thing where if you're in the passenger seat, you feel like you're in the driver's ed car, where if you slam on the brake in the passenger seat, you think it'll slam the actual brake of the car. But
realizing you have no real control. So from a paranormal perspective, bridges, of course, are over troubled waters, much like your relationship was. And water is frequently associated with paranormal activity. So there's a lot of stories that revolve around bridges, and I think we got a couple good ones today. And you're gonna start with a really great legend lore that is so good that, like so many good pieces of lore, is repeated. So with that said, take us away. Tell me the story.
Yeah, so I got this idea from when we did our Instagram live. Aaron went live on his account, and then I joined on the NightMerica account, and we were kind of chatting with everyone what their kind of local lore was, and quite a few different people came up saying crybaby bridges, which I've never heard of before. So I figured for this, why not dig into it? I got, of course, a good chunk of information from Wikipedia, but then also a website called Creepy Cincinnati, and then a book called Haunted Bridges by Rich Newman. So there's crybaby bridges across America. I'm sure there are some in Europe as well. But this is the NightMerica podcast, so we're gonna stick to the US of A.
Well, wait until they pay us to travel across the pond. Then
yes,
we'll be Night Europa.
Yes, happily. I speak French.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I want
Please.
people to know we will travel.
If the what is it? The EU. If the EU would like to sponsor us, I speak French, so we can go.
I don't, but I can really badly pronounce French words. But anyhow.
Oui.
See?
You just sound like the chef from Little Mermaid.
Or
Les poissons.
Or the Swedish chef. Mort.
What's that?
From the Muppets.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, but I digress. Sorry.
If you are here for a strict, serious, focused podcast, I can give you some other ones to recommend. That's not what we're here for. So these are bridges surrounded with lore, places where many people have seen orbs, lights, or have heard the sounds of a baby crying, hence crybaby bridges. So from what I could find, there are as possibly few as 13 bridges, which is an interesting number. But it can only kind of go up from there. I saw different numbers on many different websites. But they're in Virginia, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Maryland, South Carolina, New Jersey, Illinois, Utah, Indiana, Ohio, and Texas. And if you live in a state where there's a crybaby bridge that I did not mention, I'm so sorry, and you can write into us and I will publicly apologize. I won't go into all of them, of course, because this is not like a 5-hour long series. But I'll cover 3 of my favorite ones, including the Maud Hughes Road Bridge in Ohio, a bridge in DeKalb, Texas, and then finally one in Blackstone, Virginia. So the first bridge is a crybaby bridge over Mud Creek in DeKalb, Texas. This one's super heavy with lore, but like kind of the rest of them as well, I couldn't find any news articles or obituaries to kind of confirm any of these details. But they say, is one of Aaron's favorite kind of bibliography quotes is, they say a woman went out grocery shopping with her 3 triplets in the back seat. While riding over the bridge, the car hit a wet spot and spun out of control. It flipped over the bridge and landed upside down in the creek bed below. She did die on scene, but the children were never found. Suspicious. So now if you drive to the end of the bridge, like if you drive over into the end of it and honk your horn 3 times, the locals say you can hear the cries of the children. Many people have also photographed orbs or see a strange white light that kind of quickly disappears, which also could be considered an orb. It's hard to find photos of it, though, because it's a super small town in northeast Texas. Like, it's about as northeast as you can go, and it's tiny. So people don't really like to talk about it out of respect for this woman and her triplets. But again, I couldn't find any news articles confirming that this happened. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It could have been before news was really a thing, but I'm just always a little bit suspicious not having anything concrete to say. The second crybaby bridge I mentioned is the one in Blackstone, Virginia. Again, I couldn't really find one common origin story, but they say children died kind of a suspicious death on the bridge. They don't know if it was at the hands of the mother, which is so frequently what crybaby bridges stem from, or if it was just some sort of accident. But they say if you park your car on the bridge and sprinkle baby powder on the hood, baby footprints are said to appear. This creeps me out. I totally want to do it. It made me think of that story in San Antonio where there's the train tracks, and when the car stalls on the tracks, you can see handprints show up and it'll like push your car off the tracks. People also say they have seen a woman walking along the bridge. And of course, like all these crybaby bridges, they hear the cries of the children who lost their lives on this bridge. So, interesting. But the last one I'll talk about, and the one that I found most interesting, is one that's in Ohio, close to my Midwestern roots. And that is the Screaming Bridge of Maud Hughes Road. It also has some really great lore around it. One of it is kind of like a fantastic campfire tale. Maud Hughes Road is located between Dayton and Cincinnati in Liberty Township. It's a really quiet stretch of road. I actually went on Google Maps to kind of pretend to like walk along it, and it's like your typical rural street. It is a bridge that goes over train tracks, and on either side there are these huge, sweet kind of farm home looking things on these big plots of land, but that's kind of it. There's really not a lot of people around. There's some trees. It's very quiet. The lore is around this bridge that one dark and stormy night, a couple was driving along Maud Hughes Road when their car started experiencing some trouble, and it happened to stall right in the middle of the bridge. So the boyfriend left her to go find help at one of these homes I mentioned on the other side. And when he found a neighbor to kind of help look at the car, when he came back, he found her hanging from the overpass. It's creepy, right?
I mean, it is indeed creepy.
Well, I can't find any articles, obituaries, nothing to fact check this story.
Well, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say take it as you will. What do you think?
Well, I think these are all interesting stories. The one that I'm most familiar with is in New Jersey. The idea of the Crybaby Bridge is, as I said earlier, like it's one of those stories that gets repeated a lot, you know, the woman in white, or phantom hitchhikers, or to your point, you know, some car stalled on train tracks. I've heard that tale multiple places. The one in New Jersey, it's hard to say which is the quote unquote most famous, but that was the one that I was the most familiar with. WeirdNewJersey.com, I think, popularized it a lot, and the idea was the baby died, drowned in the water under the bridge, now known as Crybaby Bridge, at a certain time of the night, like 1 a.m. You can hear the baby cry, or there's other little lores or invocations at a certain time. You can say the crybaby 3 times or something, and it'll you'll hear the sound of a crying baby, or something will come out of the water chasing you. All these things are kind of, they follow certain patterns, like Bloody Mary. Like you invoke it on some pattern. You invoke it in some manner to kickstart the activity. I think partially that's also so we can spook ourselves. But also, if it doesn't happen, maybe you just didn't do it right, you know.
Yes.
But it's certainly interesting, and there's some lesson within that, you know, something to make us concerned about the children that we're transporting, or certainly some sort of moral lesson within that.
Yeah. Well, the one in Ohio, so the guy found her hanging in the overpass.
Oh, right.
There's also a story that a woman threw her baby onto the train tracks. After the baby boom, when there were so many babies around, she could no longer care for her child, and she then hung herself on the tracks as well. When I was like doing research for these bridges, a lot of people said it was like a post baby boom thing that people would like throw their babies over bridges, which is like so troubling and disgusting. I didn't really want to bring it up, but it's interesting to me that that could be maybe where some of these lore stories stem from.
I'd be curious to research that.
Yeah. They also say with this bridge in Ohio that if you drive on it and flash your headlights 3 times, a ghostly apparition appears. The guy who runs Creepy Cincinnati brought up a very valid point that the bridge ends in 2 sharp turns on either side. So don't do this because you won't see a car coming and you could be lower on this bridge yourself. So like be safe if you want to, like if you want to invoke something creepy, like during quarantine, like do Bloody Mary. It's in your bathroom, like no one else is going to get hurt. Maybe. But something that really I found interesting, and I actually pulled my mom in to help me, is that I find it so interesting that in all of these stories, the number 3 comes up. Flash your headlights 3 times. Flash or honk your horn 3 times. There were triplets in the car. My mom is really into numerology, and so since I'm here at their house in Phoenix, I pulled out some of her numerology books, and 3 is a really holy number in numerology. It can stand for the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, or birth, life, and death. So while it also could just be like a creepy number, it's interesting that all these different lores are around it, and it could be birth, life, and death.
3, 6, 12, 7, those are all numbers that pop up a lot in folklore and in religion, and down to the fact that things like 3 a.m. is considered the more evil. Well, the time when, evil, it's supposedly the opposite, the anti-Trinity, and it's 3 p.m. was when Jesus Christ was supposedly crucified, so 3 a.m. is when the devil mocks the Trinity and evil shows its face. So yeah, the 3 is certainly a pattern that not just in religion, but throughout folklore and throughout stories, it comes up a lot. When you hear 3 knocks on the door, it's typically an entity trying to gain access, or scratches. When people report demonic scratches, it's typically a scratch of 3. Now, I'm not saying that's all the case, but we do, and also the number 13. Like we apply meaning to these things. So yeah, it's definitely fascinating. And and the question I always have is like, are these things crybaby bridges, gravity hills, the story of the Hook Man or whatever?
Yes.
Are these repeating themselves in different locations, or are the stories just being retold with new packaging in other places? It might be a bit of both. I mean, the idea of the Phantom Hitchhiker goes back to, I don't know, I think I heard about it in Scandinavian folklore even before it was part of the U.S., like before automobiles, like in the, I think, 13th century or something. So it's these are rather old concepts. So interesting.
You were in Scandinavia before automobiles?
I was, yes. I really like to travel. If I could time travel, maybe there are stories of people that get displaced in time and end up, in a whole other place. In fact, there's a couple stories like that we could get into, like people say that they've ended up in different times, and yeah, it's kind of cool. Time travelers.
Well, I'm fascinated to hear your story.
Yeah.
If you want to dig into that.
Sure. My story is definitely one of the big ones of the paranormal, and I have to say that approaching this podcast, I wanted to avoid some popular things at first, or very well-known things at first, to kind of lean into some more deeper cuts or fresher material. But when we were talking about bridges, of course, I thought about this tale, and I'm going to dive into it now. On December 15th, 1967, rush hour traffic crowded on the Silver Bridge, overlooking the Ohio River and connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and Gallipolis, Ohio. The 39-year-old I-bar chain bridge carried a lot of people that were rushing home on a Friday, just days before Christmas. When a single eyeball in the suspension chain failed, the bridge, carrying much heavier loads than it was designed for when it was designed in 1928, collapsed. As a result, 46 people died in the resulting wreckage. 2 of them were never found. Now, the story of the Silver Bridge disaster, some say, if you're a believer in the paranormal, that it began a year earlier with the sightings of the Mothman. Let me also just say, the Mothman, when you actually try to type it out, autocorrects to the Motorman, which is a whole other phenomenon. Anyhow, on November 12th, 1966, 5 men were digging a grave in West Virginia and saw what they described as a brown human figure flying overhead. On November 15th, 1966, my birthday, but not my birth year, 2 couples reported to police that a large gray and winged figure with glowing red eyes and a wingspan of 10 feet pursued them in their car. It walked awkwardly, but it flew fast when it finally took off. And it pursued them in their car, and this was near a World War II munitions location. The 2 married couple says it was 6 or 7 feet tall, and they estimated based on their speed that this thing could fly around 100 miles an hour. This actually ended up being reported on November 16th in the Point Pleasant Register with the headline, "Couples see man-sized bird, creature, something." The reports kept on coming. After that, 2 volunteer firemen saw it. A contractor claimed the creature's arrival in a field near his house was accompanied by strange noises in his TV and the disappearance of his German Shepherd dog, which is not cool. That's very sad.
No.
So enter John Keel. Now, there were a lot of reports, some better documented than others, some that are definitely dubious. But paranormal journalist John Keel documented quite a few in the year of 1965 to 1966. He wrote about it in his 1975 book, The Mothman Prophecies. Mm-hmm. He connected this phenomena to possible UFO sightings, the appearance of the so-called Men in Black, and contactees who experienced precognitive dreams. And some of those dreams did indeed come true, foretelling certain tragedies. Many did not. Keel himself was told of a particular disaster on the day that the bridge would collapse. Although the prophecy that he received was not of a collapsed bridge, but a blackout that would occur, a massive blackout that would occur when the White House Christmas tree was being lit, I believe, and would be a widespread blackout. That didn't happen, but the bridge did collapse. Now, Point Pleasant really became this microcosm for Keel for his research in the year between the early sightings and up until the bridge collapsed. The book combined Keel's account of receiving strange phone calls with reports of mutilated pets. He noted that many UFO sightings actually occurred on a Wednesday, not just in Point Pleasant, but overall he documented that. Phone calls were often interrupted by screeching sounds. There were multiple people outside of the supposed Mothman. There were just a lot of odd sightings. If you've ever heard the name of Indrid Cold, that's supposedly one of the aliens, or maybe not aliens, one of the entities that contacted a famous contactee named Derenberger, last name Derenberger. And Keel documented a lot of this. He actually was not the first to write about Mothman or in a book. That would probably be ufologist Gray Barker in 1965. But Keel's reporting was really some of the most detailed, extensive, and pretty mind-blowing stuff. And he also worked alongside Mary Hyre, who was a reporter for the Athens Messenger, and she ended up working very close with Keel. Now, these stories are bizarre. The A lot of people, well, the people that have tried to explain the Mothman have said that it was a bird of some sort. It was um, a crane, I believe, of some sort. That it was not an actual, creature or cryptid. Uh, and that there were indeed some people that had tried to pull off hoaxes, trying to tie themselves to the supposed Mothman. Other people said it was a albino owl, but the people that
That's one
reported
big
this,
owl.
yeah, the people who reported this, a lot of them, they are pretty reliable reports and say that that's not what it was. They know what a bird looks like, even if it was a bird that was not indigenous to that area. And Keel himself has some really interesting theories about this. Now, in modern reports, the tales of Mothman, and there are other reports of Mothman. The major reports trailed off, died down a bit in Point Pleasant after this horrible wreckage on the bridge, but there have been sightings in Chicago of what's been called the Mothman. There's been supposed sightings in around Chernobyl, leading up to the disaster there. An apartment building explosion in Russia was supposedly linked to it. There's in the UK what's called the Owl Man. There's in Hindu beliefs. There's the Garuda. There's the Thunderbird in Native American, Indigenous American folklore. Keel himself thought, while some people say that the Mothman is an indicator of impending disaster, Keel thought that this was something else, and it's worth noting a lot of people incorrectly associate him with UFOs, but he actually says he has this thing called which he calls the super spectrum, and he says that the super spectrum is a source of all paranormal manifestations. It's essentially like an extra dimensional kind of zone, that it exists outside of our own space-time continuum, yet influences everything within our reality. And he said, quote, "The unknown is out there. The universe does not exist as we think it exists, and we don't exist as we think we exist." And this famously became the story of the Mothman, the story of Point Pleasant, famously became not just Keel's book, but the movie, 2002 movie based on it called The Mothman Prophecies, which changes a lot. It's a creepy movie. You might remember it from Chapstick. I don't know. Have you ever seen the movie?
Yes, but I don't remember Chapstick. I think you were just quoting yourself.
No,
on this.
no, no.
If people don't know, Aaron will not let me start recording until he has smeared on his chapstick.
I do like having moist lips. It's true. It's being
word moist.
a professional speaker. I like to have moist lips. But they kind of in the movie, they fictionalize sort of Keel having communication with one of these entities, and he's saying, "What am I holding in my hand?" And it says chapstick. And then he also says that part didn't actually happen to Keel, but what did happen is he's like, "Oh, where's my watch?" And they're like, "Check in your shoe." And that indeed happened. Not because
Whoa.
In that instance Keel had misplaced a watch or something, and the entity helpfully said, "Check in your shoe." But
can I get a Mothman to let me know when I've lost things where they are?
well, you might not want to, because so the Mothman may not have been. So Keel kind of thought he passed away in 2009. Thought that some of this is like a bit of a smoke and mirrors show from these ultra terrestrials, from these creatures, that they're basically kind of pranking us a little bit for whatever reason. We don't know, that maybe it's not like a Mothman is showing up to scare us or foretell doom or whatever, but they're operating in their own set of rules and intentions and motivations. But Also, you probably don't want to encounter a Mothman because, people's eyes get burned and swell up, or their ears bleed, things like that.
Yeah, they say Mothman's eyes are like like super red, right? Like
Yeah,
little lasers into your soul.
yeah, really bright red, and also other phenomena that was encountered during this time. A lot of people ended up essentially having what seemed like a radiation burn as a result. It's really creepy stuff and fascinating. It's definitely, I think, one of the biggest all-encompassing paranormal stories out there. But it is worth noting also, like, yes, you have UFOs. Yes, you have Men in Black. Yes, you have this Mothman, whether it's a cryptid or an alien or whatever it is. But just to dispel some of the myths associated with this, they do know why the Silver Bridge collapsed. It was a defect in engineering. It was not unexplained, and that is really important to note because people did die, and I think that it's kind of doing a disservice when you just say those people died and we don't know why. They died because of poor engineering, and well, not poor engineering, but engineering that was out of date, and and that actually led to certain regulations to improve bridge construction. But now in Point Pleasant, there's a giant winged statue of the Mothman, and they hold the Mothman Festival every year, which I've not been to yet, and I want to go.
Oh my
But
God, let's go.
giant
What food?
metal.
What carnival food?
That I don't know. Moth burgers, maybe.
Do you think they serve like funnel cake with like two maraschino cherries on top to look like his eyeballs?
If they don't, they're missing out.
They're
I
serious.
know.
Funnel cake? So
I know
good.
there's the Mothman Diner, and I think a Mothman Museum, and a whole lot of other stuff. And I know John Keel actually went before he passed away. He did go down to the Mothman Festival, so that's kind of awesome. And John Keel is probably one of my, not is definitely one of my kind of paranormal icons. Also, like, he's a journalist,
Yeah.
I get on board with that. So anyhow, what do you think about Mothman? What had you known about Mothman before?
I'd seen the movie, of course, Mothman Prophecies, which of course is like a little fantasized about it. I also listened to that super beloved episode of My Favorite Murder that I sent you to, where they have like that cute little cartoon of Mothman. And then, of course, just being like a paranormal fan, a true crime fan, researching, and I just find it so crazy that it was so huge. And in New Jersey, didn't they have, well, the New Jersey Devil is different, right? The New Jersey Devil they thought was like a crane or something.
Yeah, the Jersey Devil is. I mean, there are certain crossovers with a lot of this stuff. And there were mass sightings of the Jersey Devil at one point. Mm-hmm. The fact that this is more modern times. I mean, so this they called it a TNT area, but this former World War II munitions area is basically a lot of these concrete igloos where munitions were stored. When these sightings came out and were reported, and UFO sightings were also reported in the newspaper during that time, Mary Hyre was reporting a lot of those. People would flock at one point to the TNT area, some with like shotguns, like good old mob justice, to try to find the Mothman and take him out. Meanwhile, he was being sighted elsewhere at that point. But
But
the
that's also
number of
not
people,
fair.
not fair.
Like, vigilante justice isn't cool. Like, what if Mothman was just someone on the board of who built that bridge, and he was like, you know what? These safety measures are not right, but no one's listening to me. So I'm going to get some stilts, and I'm going to get this costume, and I'm going to freak people out into believing that they should have done better safety precautions on the bridge.
I think as far as whistleblower accounts go, dressing up as a cryptid to warn about bridge safety is a bit of a stretch.
Listen,
But
what's that McGruff, the dog? Don't do drugs. Like, I listen to people in costume.
McGruff, the crime dog, did not say don't do drugs.
Well, I'm sure he would agree to not do drugs.
I don't know. He never really commented on the subject. McGruff
Let's get him on the podcast.
He's probably dead now. I don't know how long detective dogs live, but that was back
Who
in the
knows?
early
Mr.
80s.
Peanut's dead.
Well, I don't know. McGruff, I don't really think commented on drugs. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe you just unlocked the whole mystery of the Mothman. I tend to not think so. But I also don't. I mean, I don't think that it was just like an owl or a bird carrying a frog or snake away or something. You know, I don't think it was just some sort of crane. Who knows what it was? But interestingly, on a recent episode of Paranormal Caught on Camera, on a show that I'm on Travel Channel, there was an episode of talking about Owlman out in the UK.
I saw that.
And it, you know, it was interesting. I don't know. Like, I don't know what's going on. But, yeah, Mothman. And also, not Motorman, as my autocorrect really wanted to change it to.
On a side note, I do think I should maybe dig into for a Patreon episode the fact that Mothman was sighted on your birthday and is obsessed with chapstick. I don't think that should go unnoticed.
Well, it was 11 years before I was born, and
so you say.
And also the chapstick part was just in the movie. But you're right. I think you're connecting the dots here. You're cracking the case wide open. Between that and a whistleblower in stilts dressing as a monster to warn about bridge safety, it's very sound.
Yeah. I mean, clearly quarantine has me at my sharpest.
Yes. Yes. On that note, I don't know. Let's
wrap this up.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
If you like NightMerica, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/NightMerica and consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Give us a follow on social media and share this with your friends.
And if you'd like to share your paranormal stories or even seek paranormal advice, which is for entertainment purposes only, email nightmericashow@gmail.com.